Hello, everyone, and welcome to Camp YA. We are a summer camp themed literature festival. We were born in the pandemic as a digital festival, and we are now a hybrid festival. So we will be online with amazing guests and in person in London at Olympic Park this summer for the first time. Today, I want to welcome our amazing superstar guests, which is Lockhart and Maureen Johnson. If you guys want to say hello to all the campers.
Hi, campers.
Um,
Hello,
yeah, it's
campers.
It is an honor to have you guys here. You guys obviously have a big body of work, but we will be focusing on Nine Liars and Family of Liars, which I fully read and am very, very excited about as I've read the previous books as well. Um, so, with no further ado, which is not the right expression, but could you tell us a little bit about how these books came to be? Were they spawned from an idea that you already had in your mind with your previous books, obviously because these are in the same world, or was it a product of sort of public and publishing demand, like people were so into having more that the idea kind of spawned from there, or from a moment of inspiration when you were out and about, basically?
I want to hear what Maureen has to say because I know that she had a trilogy with the Truly Devious.
I did.
I've read all of these except for Nine Liars. So, and then there was a standalone, which is The Box in the Woods, and now there's Nine Liars. So, I really am curious because that is an unusual
It
thing
is.
to have, like one mystery that goes over three books and then to go to
Mhm.
standalones.
Well, that was always the plan because I was as a kid and as an adult, just a absolutely obsessive mystery reader. Every single one that I could get my hands on, but specifically, I was a detective follower. I followed my detectives, and I wanted to create in Stevie Bell, who is the detective in Truly Devious and all the books that come after. She is my detective. I wanted to establish her in one giant case, which is the Truly Devious trilogy. And then once you've established a detective, you can give them other cases to solve. And so I then said, okay, she can go in from there and she can solve in these um, standalone books. But Nine Liars, it takes place in the UK. It takes place between Cambridge and London. And in this book, Stevie Bell, her boyfriend, has gone on a semester long study abroad to London and she misses him, and he manages to get her an invite and her friends to come over for a week during like a week holiday. And while she's there, one of his new friends from school says, hey, I know you have solved these things before. My aunt was at a murder once and she saw something that she didn't understand, and you should really talk to her about it. And the aunt really doesn't want to talk to her. Stevie actually doesn't really want to talk to the aunt, but these things get thrown together. And what happened was her aunt, when she graduated from Cambridge in 1995, she and all of her drama school friends, who all lived together in one student house, went away for a basically a graduation rager at one of the nines. There was a group called the Nine at one of their houses. Their family owns a country estate. And on the first night, they are very drunk and they play a game of hide and seek, drunk in a storm in the dark. Nine go out, only seven come back. And two were found dead in the woodshed in the morning. It was thought to be a burglary gone wrong. But this person, the aunt, saw something that night that she has never been able to explain. And that is where the case of Nine Liars begins.
Yes, I'm furiously nodding along as if this is new information when I have read it this week. I'm like, yes, yes, there was a murder. Could you tell us if the inception of this sort of prequel, yeah, essentially prequel, was that always in the back of your mind, or this was something that came later in a moment of kind of like a eureka moment, or?
Well, so Family of Liars is a prequel to my novel We Were Liars. And both of these books are set on a private island off the coast of Massachusetts. And there's this family that owns this private island, and the teenagers in the family spend summer after summer, basically isolated with their extended family on this island. And the first book came out in 2014, We Were Liars. But a very weird thing happened to me during the pandemic, which was that all of a sudden this book came back
TikTok.
to the USA bestseller list, and it emerged that people were making TikTok videos about it. And biggest thing they were doing. There were all different kinds of videos and different kinds of creative approaches to reviewing or talking about the book. But the biggest thing they would do is like hold up the book and like sob and snot coming out of their nose and mascara flying in their face and say like, WTF this book. And so there was just like a big emotional reaction. And I think that especially young people who are so primed and built emotionally for drama and connection and falling in love every couple of months and fighting with their friends and making big mistakes and going, having a very big emotional time of life when isolated from each other. We're really looking for books that were kind of cathartic emotionally. So I just was lucky that I had written one that people were responding to. And I had not thought of writing a follow-up to We Were Liars until suddenly I had so many more readers than I had before. And so it took me a long time to figure out how to write a satisfying follow-up, because if you have read We Were Liars, you can tell that this is not a book that sets up for a sequel. It's like the opposite of Truly Devious, where you're like, oh, I hope Stevie will solve more mysteries, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of We Were Liars, you're like, that chapter is good.
Yeah.
And so I ended up writing a prequel, which is a story set 27 years earlier than We Were Liars. So the teenagers in Family of Liars are grown-ups in We Were Liars, but those characters. And so you're going kind of back in time to see this other summer. And a lot of the Sinclair family secrets get revealed. A lot of stuff gets unearthed. A lot of things in We Were Liars maybe make sense once you've read Family of Liars. But I did not plan any of that. I had no idea. And I wrote the prequel, like 8 years after the first book came out.
Yeah, I read the first book when it came out. So actually, after I read Family of Liars last week, I went back and I read We Were Liars. And then I'm like, I kind of wish I'd done it the other way, because Family of Liars kind of it felt like everything connected in a really good way. If it had been fresher in my mind, We Were Liars, I felt like I would have appreciated a lot of the stuff even more. So I was like, I should have maybe flipped it, but then I was reminded of everything. And the family trees were very useful because I did keep going back to them, even though it's not even that many people on the family tree, but I kept going back to it. You did mention, obviously, so this book takes place in the 80s Family of Liars, and then we visit the 90s for a brief period. Well, not for a brief period, but less than we spend, obviously, with Stevie, but we're in the 90s for a part of Nine Liars. And so the question is, do you have a special interest in these decades? Did you have to keep the decade at the, obviously I was there too.
Oh, this is how old we are.
No, I was there too. So for part of it. But also, did you have to keep it at the forefront of your mind? Like, absence of cell phones, popularity of Oasis and Blur. And to finish up the question, are there other decades and time periods that you have your eye on for the future that you really want in a book? Sorry, we'll start with E, please, or Maureen, whoever just spoke.
Well, Stevie always has a kind of cold case. So the case in Truly Devious takes place in 1936. The case in the Box of the Woods takes place in 1978. And this case takes place in 1995. And in all of these cases, there are modern day murders as well. I don't want you to have old murder. I want you to fresh, juicy murder too. Fresh meat. A lot of times for me, it's a calculation of who's alive, who the witnesses are, where are they now, and suitability of different decades, different types of activities. For example, past crime in the 30s, it seems like in the past, especially the further back you go, if there was a murder or something, police would say, there's been a murder, quickly, everyone get in here as soon as possible, touch everything. Frank, you lick that envelope, smoke on that, sit on that, take that hat. Let's all do a group photo together, move the body out of the way. So you want to destroy evidence as much as possible, but at the same time, have this be able to be solved through tangible evidence. It's not just about, and then they did a DNA swab. This is about, I like a tangible clue in a lot of ways, a piece of paper, a footprint, some ash, a piece of wood, a rock. There's a lovely tangible element to putting puzzles together. 90s, listen, I wanted to make sure everybody got a nice big Britpop summer playlist. It was an age I needed people to be. So I wanted to go back a certain distance. And if you go way back, it's also less present. Like in some of the Fox in the Woods and Nine Liars, some of the survivors are still alive and they're in pain. But if it's way, way back, there's less of like you can be like, I can just sort of deal with that. And there's no one around to hurt. So, but these are very much puzzle-based fair play mysteries. Whereas E will grab your heart. She will reach directly into your chest. She will say, ribs, get out of the way. Give me your heart. She will tear it from you and she will fling it into the air.
Right.
Cute.
Compliment. E, do you feel like there's a decade you have your eye on for future work?
Not especially. I had a really fun time with the 80s. I mean, I was in high school in the 80s. So the music and I tried actually not, I had to pull back on 80s slang and, snack foods and men music and all of that. And not play it for kitsch at all. I just like have those, 80s textured things, especially the slang, lend a flavor, but not overdo it. Amusing as it was to play with big long lists of, gag me with a ski pole and things we said in the 80s. But historical fiction is really hard. It's really challenging, especially if it is an era that you haven't lived through. I've only written a few very short projects that were historical, and the fact checking and the research in order to even get, what's on a dinner plate accurate is enormous. And as an author, you're the one responsible. It's nobody else is fact checking your book in the same way. There's a copy editor, but they're not researching all of your history for you. And so I think I'm pretty much a contemporary fiction writer for the most part. And I also think of myself as a realistic fiction writer, even though there are paranormal elements in quite a number of my books. I think of myself as just trying to tell, sort of stories about human beings in the society that we live in now. So for me, Family of Liars wasn't like first and foremost a historical book. In other words, everyone's on this island. They're really going off island. Like there wasn't a lot of like, oh, let us go to the Blur concert or whatever.
Yeah, but it was really the Blur and Oasis mentions are all in here, but it was very subtle.
And Madonna.
In both of the books, it was very subtle, like a kind of dip in the decade, but I did enjoy it because it was like, oh, this is what like the Cape Cod area was like in the 80s, and here we are, like a little bit of 90s Cambridge countryside-esque vibe, so that was very cool. So speaking of landscapes, E, you do mention Amherst College a few times in the book. I went to UMass, so that kind of sparked something because I was like, I don't feel like anyone ever talks about that area. So I thought that was interesting. Obviously, Nine Liars is tied to Cambridge, which has come up a lot in literature. Are there schools that you have your eye on for future work? Is there like a school in the world where you're like, I want to set something there? And yeah, that's pretty much about the school. So I'd really love, because you see a lot of exploration of like the popular names and stuff like that. But I was wondering if you guys have a school in mind where you're like, I would like this lesser known place. Because when I read Amherst College, maybe it is very famous in the States, but I was like, I've never seen that mentioned in print, to be honest. So let's start with E.
Famous in the States. It's a East Coast college. And I picked it. I had toured it fairly recently when I was writing Family of Liars. So I had a, an image of what it was like and some of its history. And so I picked it because of its history and its kind of reputation and I went to Vassar And so Vassar is in a lot of my books, and it's also really easy commuting distance from New York City. So when people are at Vassar, you can get them to New York for plot purposes quickly, whereas in Amherst, it's a much longer commute to get to a big city. So sometimes I'm thinking about that kind of thing. Most of the time, I'm thinking about what I can write realistically. I have 2 books that are set in a boarding school that called Alabaster Preparatory Academy, Again, and Disreputable History of Frankie Landau Banks are both set there. And that's an imaginary boarding school. But I base the campus on the Vassar campus. And some people who went to Vassar have actually written to me and been like, I know exactly where that scene happens. It's at Vassar, So no, I just took my college and made it a boarding school in my mind. And sometimes that gives you more freedom to make, murders happen in Maureen's case, or Maureen, I would love to go to that boarding school that Stevie goes to. I'm so fascinated by
minus the murder.
the murders, but it's just like, I love a boarding school story. I really do. And I wanted to go to boarding school so badly when I was a kid. And the boarding school in Maureen's books, if you all haven't read them yet, is like a boarding school for like exceptional students who have like some kind of very unique predilection or talent that is then fostered specifically by that school in a kind of unique program. And to me, that was like so magical. And then there's the boy who finished his novel, who I really identified with.
Yeah, and he is all of us. Yeah.
And they have a great aesthetic. Obviously, on TikTok, when people cover Maureen's novels, they do this like really cool boarding school aesthetic spiel. So, but also, Maureen, I'm really grateful to you because I write boarding school mysteries, and I have for a while now, for about 8 years. And so I get on TikTok a lot of like, I've read Truly Devious, like what can I read next? And then sometimes people will tag me and stuff. So I'm like, thank you, Maureen, for making boarding school mysteries like a big thing again, because you have, and it spawned a lot of like, we have on our festival this year, we have 6 boarding schools alone in the lineup. So boarding schools are back and they're here to stay, which I love. But Maureen, in Nine Liars, the students at Cambridge are in a theater troupe. Why Cambridge and why a theater troupe?
A number of reasons. They're sort of in a comedy-ish theater group, and Cambridge has a strong tradition of that. It pumps out many of your comedians through footlights. It's a theater group because theater groups are incredibly tight, incestuous, loving, hating. You live on top of each other, everything about each other. Everybody dates everybody, or it's a very tight, intense kind of relationship. And particularly in this case, not only have they formed this group together, they've rented a student house together, and they've become like a unit. They are the 9. They are the 9 inseparable friends. And with all these kinds of circulatory connections between them, because I don't want to be like, this is about our friendship, but in many ways it is. It's about friendships in the present day, friendships in the past, and how they've continued. And Cambridge, partially because my husband went there, and I was eyeing at a couple. Cambridge made the most sense because of its history with comedy. And I'm very map focused. I'm map obsessed. I study maps constantly. I draw them. All these mysteries have maps in them, and the maps matter. Like, the maps have information in them. And I could sit there when we were stuck inside and pull up Google Maps and walk down paths and go, okay, tell me what happens if you go here. What's in there? How exactly would you have gotten from here to there? How long does it take on bike? Would you normally have taken bike? Would you have walked? Would you have done this? Would you have done that? How'd you sit your exams? How'd you do this? So he just had to answer a ton of questions constantly. He'd be trying to do something, and then my little head would pop up from the end of the table and go, hey, guy, talk to me about how far you had to walk. Did you bring an umbrella? Are your shoes too tight? That kind of thing. So use other people for information when you can. That is my pro tip. Just have someone use your resources.
So maps have been very useful to you. So obviously this map, did you have an idea of it at the start. Obviously, you had it in your head, but did you try to kind of draw it out a little bit before it went to production, or did you keep it in front of you? Did you use any type of technique like that to keep the island in mind, or do you just have it really crystal clear in your head?
I mean, it starts in my head, but yeah, at some point I do draw it out. And I think, I went to this wonderful lecture by this guy, Ron Kirchie, who is a YA novelist and poet, a number of years back. And he was talking about, once you've written a chunk of your book, or at least certain important things that happen in your book and certain important characters who are in your book, if you draw a map of their neighborhood or their house or their boarding school or whatever the key setting is, you very often find answers that you might be looking for that you wouldn't have found if you didn't draw the map. The example I remember from Ron's lecture was this character in Stoner and Spaz is walking. He has a disability. He has an unusual walk, and he has a short walk to school. And he was like, oh, well, he's walking to school, but it's a little bit of a struggle every day. And what does he see what is he walking past? Right. And he sort of drew this section of the town, and he realized that he was walking past this store where all the stoner kids hung out, and that this was a conflict emerged and a character relationship emerged because he drew this map. Right. When he thought what happens on this walk to school that might be interesting, and he could figure out what was down the block from the school. So yeah, I often do draw just a terrible scratchy looking map, and I do it when I teach too, to try to help envision what is this story world, right? And what are the conflicts within the story world, and where are people going to make out, and how long does it take them if they've committed a murder to get back to their dorm room and act like nothing happened, or what? I mean, it can be true for a thriller, but it can also be true for a romantic comedy, right? How does that story world put pressure on your character or open opportunities for your character?
Okay. And Maureen, you suggested talking to individuals and using that as a resource, right? Is that what I heard at the end of?
Yes. Also going places. I always go to where the books are set. And for example, I just did one last weekend for the new book. So I just disappeared for 2 days and went to the Thousand Islands in upstate New York. Basically, you just walk around and look. You become the town weirdo for a couple of days, where I literally just peer over railings, walk up and down streets, look at what kind of stores are there, look at what kind of signs are in the windows, what kinds of foods are most popular, what's everybody eating, what's everybody wearing, where's everybody going. And the Thousand Islands are pretty fascinating because it's just 1,800 islands scattered in the middle of the St. Lawrence River, and everybody is for example, I took a tour on one of the days, and the tour guide was a teenager, and she said, yeah, I go to work every day on a jet ski. I said, that's amazing. So
right, like that TV show Outer Banks. Kind of like that.
Ish, but it's very New Englandy.
Yeah.
And they in there. They have a lot of islands that have just one little bitty house on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can have literally just a little tiny island with one tiny house on it. But it used to be filled with millionaires who built castles. And they would just boat from their they would just go up and down on their yachts and visit each other at their mansions on these boats.
That sounds like a nice place to visit, not gonna lie. So for otherwise, it sounds very nice. Very Eric. You mentioned food as well, trial the food. I did get hungry whilst reading both books. Yes. Maybe that's because I'm obsessed with food, but from lobster rolls to the kebabs and the curry and the strawberry cake, I did get very hungry. So how important is it for both of you to write about food? And did you experience all this food that you write about? So we'll start with E.
Well, Family of Liars, the food is very culturally specific. This is a waspy New England family, whether it's in Family of Liars in the 80s or in We Were Liars set in 2012. it's still the same, demographic, and there's still lobster rolls, right, on Cape Cod in New England. For Family of Liars, I did research a lot of 80s food trends, pesto and sun-dried tomatoes, and there were some wacky ones that were either like super gourmet or super ridiculous snack foods, sort of lowbrow, and I didn't put those in much as I kind of wanted to. I stuck with stuff that fit the Sinclair family and their kind of tastes, but there was a lot of there's a lot of sun-dried tomatoes and like, and at one point they have a lemon party, and the lemon party in the book is basically a lemon themed party where throughout the whole private island at night they hide 100 lemons and a single lime, and people have like baskets with yellow ribbons, and they go out and they have to find these lemons, and there's a prize for the lime and a prize for the most lemons, and hijinks ensue and kissing and so forth in the dark. But I did like plan out that whole party with the help of like marthastewart.com and various other entertaining websites where, summer party recipes and, all the different things that you can make with lemons, cocktails and desserts and everything.
Yes, I wanted to ask about the lemon party because it's one of those parties you might read about and go, oh, okay, turn up your nose, but then go, but I really want to go to this lemon party. This sounds really amazing. Actually, I feel like having a lemon party now. Maureen, you talked about all of the English staples. So we encounter, I won't be spoiling anything in this panel, but we do encounter, kebabs and curry, all of it described very much as someone who went there and had all of that in mass and enjoyed it. So what role does food play in your mystery books, and what type of food do you like to write about?
I'm so glad you brought it, because I was thinking about Family of Liars and We Were Liars and how much I think about the food in that. And the second I even think of the title, and the first thing that comes to mind is the strawberry, and then kind of like, I don't even think it's in there, but some sort of like lavender lemonade, or like very super waspy and aspirational, but at the same time sounds delicious. Like I'm down with the strawberry. Let's go. Let's have some of this lemonade. Let's do it. It tells about people in place. So up in Ellingham Academy, where Stevie goes to school, is in Burlington, Vermont. And let me tell you something. This is up in the Green Mountains of Vermont, and they love some maple syrup. You go up there and the rivers run with maple syrup. When people shake your hand, they just pour a cup of maple syrup into your pocket as a greeting. It is everywhere. It's in everything. There's maple syrup water, candy, and ice cream, and maple covered bacon, and like everything. It rains from the sky. And so Stevie's always talking about how she's like, it's just all maple syrup here. In Fox in the Woods in 1978, there's a picnic or kind of town get together just to kind of, they're mourning the loss of these kids, but they have a lot of Tupperware containers of macaroni salad and hot dishes full of, hot dogs, cooking and baked beans, like very American style 70s picnic food in specialized Tupperware that is probably avocado green. English food, I am passionate for English food. Being a vegetarian, let me tell you, and he is too, we eat very well in the UK. It's better than here. Thank you, Vegetarian Society, for marking all your food. But I married an English person, and I am very fun, and I'm always trying to cook him stuff or find food for him so that he feels less homesick. So I've tried to really learn how to get like that specific feeling of curry. I'm like, here's a curry. Oh, we could try this curry takeout. He's like, it's not quite right. Papadums are just they're not right, or it doesn't taste like home, or just some elderflower cordial. He's like, you give him a bottle of elderflower cordial and he holds it like it's a baby. He's like, oh.
My husband is from England too, and the elderflower cordial is a real thing in the Marmite.
I'm also in the UK and also married a Brit, so I understand what you mean about the food. And also just London, everything Stevie experiences, London just has so much choice that isn't English as well, and it's so good, all of it. So I did and I know when I was reading about the maple syrup, I was like, I know this is meant to turn me off because Stevie's like, oh, everything's maple syrup, but it just made me want maple syrup, to be honest. I was like,
you like maple syrup, it's also the home of Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Yeah.
So you can tour the Ben and Jerry's plant. But English food just has a very dear, like, you guys know how to eat while you're hungover or you're drunk. You just know how to do it. You're like, I've had this many pints, therefore the following will be required. 1, Alfrezy curry. 2, garlic naan. Like, I've never seen such a, like, as a group, they're like, come, we know, we are trained for this. We train for this all the time. We know what to eat now.
Yeah.
It's
And
just a
that's why your 9 liars have such great hangover etiquette, and their hangovers just last the morning, and they're doing everything that needs to be done for to be able to drink again that evening. So, yeah, I did I did catch up on that. But as well as in Family of Liars, they're all doing a bit of drinking as well. And whilst reading both books, I'm like, where is everyone's hangover? This isn't realistic. But then I'm like, oh wait, they're all very young. That makes sense. You don't actually get as hungover, because I die after like 4 pints. So I did have to remind myself that they are very young. Speaking of your cast, both books, as well as the books that came before them, feature kind of large casts, on the side of large casts, I would say. Do you ever, whilst writing, regret a little bit having a large cast, because of the sort of character story arcs that you have to wrap up by the end of it? Um, or are you really happy that you chose large cast? We'll start with Maureen.
The 9 seems very clear to me. It did mean I had to make sure. Mysteries have a very specific dynamic in that you have to provide people with a certain number of reasonable options for a guilty party. So you can't just have, 2. Well, you can. You absolutely can. What am I saying? Of course you can. That's actually a pretty good dynamic, because it's very tense. Which of the 2? Is it both? Is it none? But managing where everybody is, what everybody knows, can be very useful. And it's also, you get many different perspectives on the same event. So I tend to like them, but this is about as large as I've ever gone.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, aside from the 9, you've also got the 5 in town, plus Izzy, who joins them. So you're starting to work with like largish numbers. And the Sinclair family is, I would say, on the larger side. And so, E, do you ever feel like, boy, there's a lot of people to wrap up here when you're writing?
Well, I just decide some of them are not important. I don't.
Okay.
It's the littles are not important. They're usually I don't feel that way. I feel like as I get to the end of the book, I want to know what happened to these people. It doesn't feel like a chore to follow them up, I think the challenge is actually in writing that first, 15, 20 pages of the book, right? To keep your reader oriented if you have a large cast, right? You can't introduce everybody all at once. You have to parse them out, and you have to find ways of kind of helping the reader to pay attention to somebody who's more important, and not, get involved too much with subsidiary characters, but also you don't want to sketch them or stereotype them to the point where they don't seem real. You know what I mean? So you're kind of, a lot of times I'm pairing through those first 20 pages with a fine-tooth comb to try to like make sure that I'm controlling kind of how much I'm introducing, and also like in Family of Liars, a boatload of cute boys and one girl shows up on the, and there's 3 boys and 1 girl. Is that right? And they all have to be introduced at once because they're all literally getting off the boat at once. But I had the girl run off with her friend right away so that we meet her later. Right. And then I only really had to deal with the 3 boys. And honestly, it used to be 4, but I got rid of one because he was de trop, so, but he was there for a while. Right. And then I folded him into somebody else and had to rejig everything. And I had 4 originally because I wanted it to feel like a party in the guest house, right? These boys all move into the guest house together. I wanted it to feel like fun was being had there, right? The girls would, of course, go over to where the boys were, and the boys would be disgusting and have taken over the guest house. And I wanted it to just feel that way when like a whole bunch of guys live together and they're all, 19 years old and they are just yucky. But it's still really fun. So I felt I needed that fourth boy. Then I got rid of him.
Okay, so there is too much at some point. Maureen, was it always 9 from the start, or did we lose somebody?
No, they were always 9. I don't know why they were always 9, but they always were. That seemed to be the correct number because I do kill 2 of them pretty quickly, but you do get to hear about them.
And I think that's not a spoiler, just letting everybody know who's going to be reading these beautiful books. Yeah, it's not. I had notes for myself of what the spoilers are after I double checked everything because I'm like, do not say a spoiler.
So it's really 7.
The way you name the books, there's a sound, right? To me, like The Box in the Woods and 9 Liars. If you had 8 Liars, it wouldn't sound like a Maureen Johnson book. No, and 10 wouldn't sound right either. You need that I sound. Go with Liars to create the rhythm, like in The Box in the Woods, O, and then the double O, and the Truly Devious, like with that. I mean, there's an echo in
rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all know We Were Liars has gone through a TikTok rebirth of sorts. And Truly Devious is also quite popular on TikTok. I just moved back to the UK last week and I went into WH Smith, which is a big brand, but they have relatively few books nowadays inside one of them. And there was a giant shelf called As Seen on TikTok or Loved by TikTok. And that was their main shelf. And of course, We Were Liars was on there. So I wanted to ask, do you guys feel pressure to keep on top of social media to understand if there's going to be new social media coming about? And do you feel that things like TikTok have changed publishing forever, essentially? So we'll start with E.
Well, I was on a panel with Maureen about social media like 8 years ago, I think maybe it was. And I always think about what Maureen said on this panel. And what she said was, you can only be yourself. No one is going to respond to fake behavior on social media or to like trying to sell your book, or if you don't like doing it or you're putting on a fake, like the only thing you can offer is whatever you can genuinely offer from whatever it is that you actually enjoy about it. Did that feel like what you said? That's what my takeaway was. Yeah. So that was really, really, really helpful to me. Like, I'm available for some stuff on social media, and I am really, really not available for other stuff. And you could say, where's your family? Where's your children on social media? They're not there. They will never be there. Right? Why am I willing to do a stupid, silly dance on social media, but I'm not willing to mouth words that someone else is saying on TikTok? I don't know, but I like doing one thing and I don't like doing the other thing. So I just offer like what comes from like my little bit of creative engagement and entertainment with whatever the platform is. You know what I mean? And I think this is what I'm up for. This is not what I'm up for. I just do. I don't have a strategy. I don't actually feel like I have to. I feel like sometimes it helps. It's nice to be available, especially when you write for young readers. It's nice to be open to them, right? Like to read your messages and reply. But if I don't feel like I'm up for that this week, I got a lot going on in my personal life, I don't do it. You know what I mean? I do it when I can. I do it when I like that. But I just follow Maureen's advice.
I think that we particularly have a funny connection because we used to go and write every single day together, like 5 days a week. Me, and John Green. We were the 3. And we used to sit and write every single day. One day, it was like right at the beginning of January, because that's when they started. John walks in with this video camera, goes, I'm going to do a video. Like, my brother's going to do one, and then I'm going to do one, and we're going to do one every day. And we both looked at him and said, that's stupid. Good luck with your thing.
Good luck, Hank. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah. We were like, how are you going to write when you do it? But we're in a bunch of those early videos because we were just sitting there making fun of them the whole time.
Sure.
Right.
I feel like platforms change all the time. Audiences move around, but like, yeah, you can't, people will know if you're chasing trends, and so just use things as authentically as possible, because otherwise they will realize that you're not really, although some I think lend themselves more to just a presentation. Like, for example, Instagram, I think just showing people like, hey, I'm going to be here or there, or here's a picture of some research I'm doing, I think is a little more like, you can present something and say like, hey, here's something. Do you like this? Okay, if not. But getting dressed up and all that is not something I do. Like, I'm just not. It's just not. It's just not something I'm going to do. So I am very much trying to encourage sloppy talk and filthy ground. Like, it's just, whenever I see people like writing and everything is beautiful, I'm like, I want to show you my actual writing. I've got pencils shoved into my bra. My hair's like this. I'm screaming. I've accidentally chewed the end of a notebook. That. And I ask people, and they're like, "Yeah, we would watch that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We want to know how books get written. You can show us that." And I'm like, "Cool, let's go. You're down. I'm down."
Just a live stream of you struggling is what people want to see.
Struggle can. I'm fine with doing that. Just be like, here's me writing.
Yeah. This.
Yeah.
I read your blog about the Kanban. What do you say?
Kanban board, yeah.
Yeah. I read it like a year ago, and then tried to do it, and I failed. But I had a college try. It was very inspiring, and I think that is one of the things I sorely miss about sitting around with Maureen and John Green, which is that almost we really forget how. We don't know how we did it. We don't know how to write a book. We have some things that like worked last time don't feel like they're going to work this time. Sometimes we use one program, sometimes we use another program, sometimes we write things and you're looking at the start of a book and you think, you don't think, oh, I've got this, let me just roll up my sleeves and type the book. Like, you just feel like, oh my God, how does somebody write a novel? And looking at the 11 novels that you've published in your shelf does not make you feel any better. It just makes you feel like some other version of you knew how to write a novel, and that was nice, but that person is gone now. So having regular contact with other people who can either tell you an idea for how you might go about this weird task that we do for professional reasons, or just sympathize, or just like people who understand what a weird job it is. I don't have that so regularly anymore. It was great.
I need to talk about Holly Black for 1 second, because Holly is a miracle in human skin. She's amazing. She is sort of a goddess of story. She helps everybody. She knows, she's always thinking about process. She wants to talk to you about process all night. She wants to hear your novel and your novel problems. She is constantly, constantly, constantly thinking about this, but she got really into planners. And during the pandemic, she was one of the first people I ever saw. They actually, Holly and her husband, because we live in New York City. I'm not in New York City right now. I'm in my parents' house, staying with my parents. I don't own this many tchotchkes on the wall. I don't have a little wreath in the shape of a heart on my wall. I'm not in my house. It's not my house.
Can you repeat the last name? Because I just caught Holly, and multiple Hollies are coming to Holly Black. Okay.
Holly Black, yes. Yeah. Author of The Cruel Prince.
Yes, who lives in Amherst, or used to at least live in Amherst.
No, she lives in Amherst. She definitely lives in Amherst. Yeah. Cassie Clare lives in Amherst. Like, I spent a lot of time in Amherst. Amherst was the first place I went during the pandemic.
Yes.
And I left New York, and she and her husband actually were trying to get us out of New York. They created an escape plan to try to help us get out. Wow. But she got into planners, and she's like, I've been watching videos about planners, and it's hat and planners, and we talk about planners, and then you get the planners, and then I've seen the notebook, but like, she's like, and then you get the stickers, and here's the thing, like, what kind of layout do you want? Do you want the dashboard layout? Do you want the column layout? And then I was like, I too will get into planners, and I will watch planners. And then people were like, I spent 7 hours this week creating my 1 week planner layout with the stickers. and the columns. And then they did the special lettering, and they're like, and then here's a page devoted to the page that I will do the planners on. Here's my entire room.
So you had a pandemic bullet journal breakdown, is what we could call. Many of us had it.
It went on for far too long. And the day I realized I was in trouble was I had 4 empty planners on my desk, and I was basically crying. And I just I had someone come in to help me, and I said, can I just throw these away? I need to destroy them. I need to destroy them before they destroy me. Because I am trying to put all my anxieties about not knowing what I'm doing onto one of these planners, which is a long way of saying that every time we have to invent it. We learned to write a book by writing that book.
That's really good advice. I went to school at UMass and only found out as a budding writer once I had left that Cassie Clare and Holly Black both lived there. And I was like, I could have gone to Ray's, the only local nice coffee shop at the time, and they would have probably been sitting right there on their laptops. So that was a regret for me. I was like, Amherst is tiny. I could have probably seen those worlds created from afar across the coffee shop. But it is a very cute town for anyone wanting to run away and write. Could you guys, if someone read one of these fabulous books, could you guys recommend any TV shows that would have a similar aesthetic or vibe? Obviously, we know that We Were Liars isn't in progress to become a TV show, but until that's out for the world to enjoy, are there some shows that you'd say have similar vibes? Because I'm thinking of a few.
There's actually a couple. And the one that actually is nothing like We Were Liars, but I think about it is that, do you remember that show Revenge?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Revenge! I don't know why, but at moments like, Revenge!
Right. Well, it's Cape Cod or the Hamptons or something, Revenge, right? Is it the Hamptons?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all those beautiful houses and rich people behaving badly. But I feel like the thing in some ways that's closest in my head to the Truly Devious series is Wednesday.
A lot of people have said that. Yeah, it's Wednesday.
And because it's an exceptional, unusual boarding school, and it's, I would say, a neuroatypical heroine who nonetheless finds, a group of friends and a way into solving a mystery. And I think that, like, the things that people really ate up about Wednesday, they would eat up about Truly Devious as well. But I think that the YA mystery, I don't feel like there's so much of it on television, actually. I feel like there's a lot of YA rom-com, and then there's like sort of drama, like Outer Banks, like people in bathing suits with like problems, but it's not exactly a mystery, so to speak. There's like secrets and lies and things, but I don't know. What were you thinking of?
I was actually thinking Outer Banks, even though there's not a lot of intersectionalism, but I was just thinking like the beachy foods and what they're always cooking and they have a kind of mystery at the center of that. So I was like, if I wanted to read Family of Liars and then go a bit lighter, but still have that teens, because they have the wasps kind of in Outer Banks as well. So you get a little bit of insight into those generational wasps there. Wednesday Addams is a really good comparison that I wouldn't have thought of, because obviously you'd think that was removed, but Wednesday Addams is great for fans of Truly Devious. And also the last season of You deals with the show You deals with a murder in kind of high society English with country house, with a bunch of people stuck in a country house. So that's what I would also recommend if you read Nine Liars and then wanted to keep going on those vibes. What are you both, I think we're getting close to time, but what are you both currently reading if you are finding time to read right now?
I just read Lance Metha Chang's The Family Chow, which is a lovely murder story set in a family that owns a Chinese restaurant in the Midwest. So there's like a little town in the Midwest, and this is like the only Chinese restaurant, and the family's got three brothers, and so it's kind of I realized only after I finished reading it, somebody told me at a party that it's the brothers Karamazov, but I did not recognize that at all. And she's just a masterful storyteller. And, only one person committed the murder, but everyone is guilty, like one way or another. You know what I mean? It's really, really rich with food and cooking and sort of backstage in a Chinese restaurant, and it's very human. And I love a mystery that makes me feel things at the same time.
Okay. And you, Maureen?
Aside from a pile of mysteries and a bunch of nonfiction that relates to the new project, I also just this week I finished Yellowface, which absolutely gave me a massive anxiety attack.
I've heard it's amazing.
It's so good, but because it deals so much with publishing and what publishing is really like. It's the only one I've read that's like, no, this is really, 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 really it. It's like reading a murder mystery, but all the murders take place in your house. Like someone is written about the house that you live in. like, this is too close. This is, oh god, and it's a horror story. It's someone who becomes a monster and goes insane within the realm of publishing and wanting to be a certain type of writer. And the lengths that she goes to and the actual things that happen to her inside of it. And it is terrifying and so good.
Thanks. But it's an industry that so many people idolize, and then you see a lot of people being broken down into pieces once they're in it. So maybe it's good to kind of see a bit of a real inside peek like that.
That people write books about fun, but this is one I'm like, nope, that's all the ugly bits, but that's it.
Yeah. And there's people are starting to talk a lot about the ugly bits. Like you go on Twitter and it's not what it was, whatever, many amount of years ago. Like people are like, they're talking about everything, who gets paid what is happening, and stuff like that. So there's a lot more transparency, I think, from where I'm sitting going into publishing. But to wind things down, I'd love to know where you currently sit in your writing journey, what you can tell us, because of course there's secrets to be revealed probably. Are you on deadline, mid-edits, research, full-on promo mode for these beauties? Or where are you currently?
I'm not in full-on promo mode, but I did just come back from a new teen book festival. So yours is the second new teen book festival that I've gone through this season, and it was in Illinois, and it was called YAM, so YA Midwest. But it was at many a sweet potato there as well. And it was a really nice festival. Like people came and there was like trivia and there were like all these great panels and the vibe was really good. And there was a cosplay contest and just made me remember how lucky I am to get to go to this kind of thing, like to go to a teen book festival where everyone's just like, I like this stuff. I made everybody friendship bracelets, it was just like young people and adults and educators, and everybody was just really vibing on like good stories and good books. And it was just like, it was a really juicy, lovely community thing. So I feel very lucky when I get to tour and do stuff like that. I have to write a book this summer. I'm in the maybe a planner will save me phase of that.
Yeah. And you, Maureen, where are you sitting currently?
Very much in the middle of writing a book. This is a new book that'll be out next year called Death at Morning House, which is a standalone, totally separate new mystery. And then after that, there will be 2 more Stevie Bell mysteries and then some other stuff on top of that. So I'm always on deadline and trying not to travel that much this summer. I'll be back in the UK for Yalk in November. So.
No, we'll see you there. The whole Camp YA team usually does go to Yalk and stuff, so that's exciting. Okay, well, I love what you said about the festival. That's what we try to do at Camp YA. Like, people are like, why a summer camp? And we're like, because our mission statement, because we were born in the pandemic, is just we want you to have fun. Yes, go to panels, go to workshops, learn things, but all of it is only in the spirit of fun. It's not official. It's not super serious. It's just have fun, fun, fun. Leave when you want, do what you want. We have a resting area at our actual physical festival. So yeah, that's why we're a summer camp, essentially. We're going to have a lightning round of questions, and then we'll say our goodbyes. So lightning round, first YA book you ever read where you were like, this is YA. Like, E, please.
Go Ask Alice, which is a false autobiography of a drug addicted teenager.
Yeah. And Maureen?
Westing Game.
Right. East Coast or West Coast? I think I know the answer to this.
East Coast.
East Coast.
Okay. Kennedy aesthetic or royal wedding aesthetic?
Oh, well, my books are very Kennedy aesthetic, but my actual aesthetic is more like, mommy drinks.
And you, Maureen?
Bag aesthetic. I live with raccoons aesthetic. Hippies.
Okay.
Show me the hippies.
Okay, so hippie aesthetic. Got it. New England-ish, adjacent. Wellies or flip-flops?
Crocs.
Okay.
Wellies.
Crocs. Did someone say Crocs?
Say Crocs.
Oh, I have my Crocs.
Okay.
Yeah, they're. I never thought I would be a Croc person, and yet here we are. Everyone has become a convert of Crocs. Would you like to get an Oscar, a Golden Globe, or a Tony? You can only pick one.
I want the Prince Award.
Okay. Maureen?
I want the Edgar.
Okay, there were three. You can also have the Edgar and have a Tony. You only have to pick from those three. Would you prefer a book with a map or a book with a family tree? You have to pick one, a family tree or a map.
Keep wanting us to be binary and be and ourselves as well.
Okay. But you do have both. So in real life, no one has to choose. But I was just curious which one, if you had, if the publisher were like, look, we can just have one, what do you choose? A lot of us would choose a map, I'm guessing. You are allowed to pick one A-lister for your to-screen adaptations. No one is too big. No one has aged out. Just one A-lister. And you're just like, oh, this is who we're going to have. Who is it?
Oh.
No one is too big.
Emma Thompson.
Okay, that's a good one. Maureen.
Millie Bobby Brown.
Millie Bobby Brown. Okay, well that's very realistic. I thought more like Cher. So, but
Cher,
I think
and also Cher both.
And also Cher. But I think Millie, people tag Millie in this because that is very realistic. To be fair, age range and everything. So, okay, that is amazing. We were absolutely honored to have you with Camp YA. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. We're really excited to have you on our online lineup. And we know that our attendees are also very excited to watch you and learn more about the books. I don't think they need a reintroduction because everyone is going to see this on the main shelf when you get into a bookshop. But Family of Liars and Nine Liars are except Chef's Kiss, marvelous books. So now we can say our goodbye to all the campers. But again, thank you so much from all of us at Camp YA.
Thank you.
Thank you for having such wonderful questions and for hosting us.